Their land was 1,000,000 square miles. When the Europeans came, there were about 200,000 of them in what is now Canada. They were a proud people, proud of their traditions, their ways. In Canada, the policy was to make treaties, officially aimed at protecting the Indians against exploitation. Tracts of land were deeded to the Indians to be theirs forever. And with the signing of the treaties, it seemed that justice had been done. But the reserve Indians became a people forgotten by all but missionaries and government officials. They dropped out of the mainstream of Canadian life. Now the forgotten people are finding a voice again.
Cowboy in the Indian movies strike me a little funny. They're a little bit one-sided, but of course it's for the enjoyment of the public, I imagine. But for us people, it's sometimes it's a little hardship for the older people. Well, they take it as a joke too at times. I think that it's kind of unfair, and sometimes we should get a side on this cowboy in Indian movies. I think we should get our turn to be the winner once in a while. I identify myself as a full-blooded Indian and as a member of this Okanagan tribe. This particular tribe has been set up here for years. And I was born here right at home, not in the hospital. I was born right at home, and all of my family was born at home. So I don't know what more I can be to be an Indian. I know how to go out and hunt deer and fish. I like fishing, hunting, and I know all the different types of roots that we have to dig and eat, and the moss on the trees, how you bake them and eat them. The berries and the different seasons, and well, all that sort of thing. Younger children don't really know. They can't even talk Indian. This is the main thing. You have to speak it to be it, and there isn't enough of the middle-aged people that are speaking their own tongue now, and the younger children, if mainly sometimes you'd ask them, "Are you an Indian?" They'd say, "No, my name is so-and-so." I guess from movies they've changed their attitude towards being an Indian. I don't know. But many of the people of about my age and older, they'd rather be Indian than anything. And
hey! This way. Come here. this way.
Herbie Manuel's children haven't yet had to face up to a real dilemma. What world will they live in when they're grown up? The way of the white man, or what remains of the Indian way? For the values of the old Indian way have been almost entirely destroyed. In some tribes, the great moment of a man's life was the potlatch ceremony, in which he gave away all his possessions. The ceremonial masks now hang in museums. For valuing thriftiness as we do, we long ago made the potlatch illegal. But there are Indians who see hope in the revival of the old way. One of them is Norval Morrisseau. Morrisseau lives with his family on a reserve at Sandy Lake in northern Ontario. It's a straggling settlement of identical houses spaced out along the lake.
How? Nu det är bara man då är det. Jag bakte.
Morrisseau is an artist, and occasionally he gets to Toronto or Montreal to attend exhibitions of his work.
Norval Morrisseau est un Indien authentique, un Indien de réserve.
Norval Morrisseau is a reserve Indian. He is a trapper and handyman, but for the most part unemployed.
Néanmoins, il a fait ses écoles.
His formal education ended at grade 3, but his real education has been in the University of Life. He learned his lessons from his maternal grandfather, who was an encyclopedia of the lore of the Ojibwe tribe. It is from this source that he has learned the lessons that serve him and inspire him in his work.
Thank you very much. I don't think a person should waste his talent that he's given to do fix motors. Many times I was told, do something else. But I don't want to do this. I want to do art. I believe this is what the Great Spirit wants me to do. We do not know his ways. Perhaps I'm a chosen instrument to do certain things for my people. We do not know. Every time I paint and I sit down, I said, look at the sheet of paper. There's nothing in there. Same thing as God when he created the world. There was nothing in there. But it came through his mind. The world was populated, trees, sky, and everything we see. Well, it is the same way with me. I don't consider myself as a Manado or the Great Spirit. An empty sheet of paper. He must inspire me with these things. Another thing, being an Indian, I guess it helps a lot because I could start telling one legend to one Indian. In return, he'll tell me another one. I could tell him another one. He could tell me another one. This continues to various different Indians. And by this time, I have a lot of information. Mostly all the Indians, this is what we generally talk about. We talk about legends. We talk about various incidents, what happened in history. And this is where I get my information. And some of the legends that I hear from Indians, they start, I see mental, what you call this, images. You know, it's in my head already. I just could see it already in the canvas or paper or whatever medium I'm going to use.
Mauriceau's brothers have established themselves away from the reserve. He himself keeps coming back. For him, the Indian way isn't quite dead. It might even revive. His beloved grandfather died years ago. But there are men on the reserve still who remember and respect ancestral customs. Mauriceau visits an elder to invite him to a ceremony which he dreamed he was commanded to carry out. He consents to preside at the ceremony, which is to give an Indian name to Mauriceau's newborn son in the name of Manitou. That was the way of our ancestors, and you, Mauriceau, are the only one of all the young people who has remembered that way. It was not a bad way. I shall be there. There are more than 1,000 people living on the reserve. Some reserves in Canada are prosperous. The majority, however, are poor in resources, and many of the people couldn't get along at all without welfare payments and governmental assistance.
I've lived a miserable life, I should say, yet a happy life in a certain way. I didn't have too much of anything. I didn't have no clothes. I remember one time going into a cookery where they had camps. I remember I had a big rip on my pants and my seat was showing. Now, do you think if I had an extra pair of pants, I could have went home and wore the other? I didn't have none. Many times I didn't have no shoes in the summer because it wasn't my dad's fault. If he could have afforded it, he could have given us some. Now, this is what I've been striving for all these years, to try to get away from it. My brothers that are married, I have 4 brothers, they're married, they work, they got out of this thing. They have good homes, they got good families, they make good income, and they are able to provide for themselves whatever they need. But to me, like, I like the Indian type of living, then I like the white man's type of living.
Mauriceau has tried living away from the reserve, but for him this place has a significance which a city dweller can't imagine.
This is where I learned. This is where the decision was. I had to come away from the distraction I had to come to peace, simplicity, in order to really know myself, what I want to do.
At the ceremony, which was to give the Morrisseau baby an Indian name, most of those who came were the older people and children. The younger generation didn't turn out, for on that day, the voices, however faintly, echoed the distant tribal past, and many of the young have been taught to think of that past without pride. The naming feast is so outdated that Morrisseau began by assuring his guests that he was not setting himself up as a shaman or medicine man, that the ceremonial was a genuine revival of ancient tradition. The tobacco is a gift from Manitou. To smoke together is to acknowledge the gift. The dead branch is the life and season past. The living branch is renewal. All of nature is created by Manitou. Man himself is a creation of Manitou. We must come to God, the God of the white man's religion, the Manitou of our ancestors. Manitou has ordained that we men shall give the names to all things he has created. The newborn is to be named Uskinikipi. May he be blessed. Age, death, and eternal rebirth. The foundation of all ancient religion rests on nature and man's place in it. At the feast, the cherries symbolize the fruit of the tree of life. The bowl of maize symbolizes our mother, the earth. The values of the old Indian way were strange to the white man. It rarely occurred to a white man that his own ways might seem barbaric to an Indian. Chief Sitting Bull long ago related with horror. Today at the trading post, I saw a white woman strike her own child. A prayer, a blessing, a welcome. In the old days, a child was born not just into a family, but into a band, a tribe. One day he would be a hunter too. The continued existence of the band would one day depend upon him. Now the band doesn't mean much anymore.
Pitch nawats kesemantu okimino niman utini niman juwini niwan enigo nape kaisi kaskituts sisakihat wiwan. Eko mina uski testament kama sinaigatek amiwe ka pakusinimok semantu siminikuye mino wechituen tiae simino sakituye mino ikwe sinon dawato napeman Poi quando meno asik inikut sinon dawat. Wayo taw mit meno kosmen masmeno sing. Sydney Fiddler, do you take Harriet Linklater here present for your lawful wife according to the right of our Holy Mother, the Church?
I do.
Harriet Linklater, do you take Sydney Fiddler here present for your lawful husband according to the right of our Holy Mother, the Church?
I do.
Now join your right hands and say after me. I, Sydney Fiddler,
I, Sydney Fiddler,
take you, Harriet Linklater,
take you, Harriet Linklater,
for my lawful wife,
for my lawful wife,
to have and to hold,
to have and to hold,
from this day forward,
from this day forward,
for better,
for better,
for worse,
for worse,
for richer,
for richer,
for poorer,
for poorer,
in sickness and in health,
in sickness and in health,
until death do us part.
until death do us part.
I, Harriet Linklater,
I, Harriet Linklater,
take you, Sydney Fiddler,
take you, Sydney Fiddler,
for my lawful husband,
for my lawful husband,
until death do us part.
until death do us part.
By the authority of the Church, I ratify and bless the bond of marriage you have contracted in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
lies ahead for Sidney and Harriet Fiddler? The reserve hasn't the resources to support them. There's some fishing, some trapping, but it doesn't bring in enough to make a decent living. Fiddler has got himself a job at a mine 100 miles away. If they come back here, it will only be to visit. They may live well. They may be very lonely. Recreations and reenactments of the old Indian culture do occur, of course, but as a show, a spectacle, not as living rituals.
Now we're going to do the welcome dance.
Among the spectators was a girl whose ancestors built totem poles on the Queen Charlotte Islands. Barbara Wilson works as a secretary in Vancouver.
I was raised on the reserve till I was 15, and then I moved away to residential school. I guess you'd call that city girl life after a while, I don't know. Pretty much the same as any other life, I figure. For me, Indian life on the reserve was easy life, not having to worry about anything. And I don't know, it's completely different from city. Everything's so slow there. And I don't know, mostly because my folks were there, I guess, when I was there. It's hard to say. I don't see that much of my family here. So, for the older people, yes, I think there should be a reserve. But I don't know, I think in years to come that there won't be any more reserves. The Indian people are coming out and I don't know, they're adopting, what would you call them, English ways, white ways. And a reserve just doesn't look like what people think of a reserve as anymore. No, I wouldn't like to live that way, no. Although I'd like to see that way come back to a certain extent, to where we had our customs, where we learned our native tongue. I'd like to see that come back. I think it's a shame that young people my age leave the reserve without having any real grounding of their own language. I know very little of my own language myself, for the simple reason it was never spoken in my home to us. My folks spoke it, but they spoke it for privacy, I guess. It's funny. Now you want to learn it, and you have nobody to learn it from. All the old people are dying off. And with them, the old customs are dying too. Yes, we are poor in a way. We're poor that we don't have as many professions, or we don't have really anything to go in with the education level we have in a reserve right now. I won't say it'll always be true, but right now it is. It's hard to get into something that you don't know, something you've never known. It's like coming to the city for the first time. You're scared. You're afraid to look at people for fear they're going to be staring at you and wondering what you are, where you come from. what you're doing in town, what you intend to do. It's hard for anybody to come to this city, I guess, especially if you've grown up on a reserve where you know everybody and you're related to everybody and everybody knows when you cough, everything else. Funny. Oh, I was out on a date. I was double dating with a girlfriend. And we're both Indians, and we were out with a couple of fellows from town. And I don't know, it wasn't, oh, it's hard to say, I don't know. It's just the way they acted and the references they made towards Indians in general. Snide remarks, I guess, mostly. Oh, I ignored it until I got home, and we talked about it. And we never went out with the fellas anymore. All human beings aren't equal to each other's in their way of thinking. I mean, the way they think of each other's. I don't know, it's hard to say. Take Indians, for example. Prime example right there. People think Indians are inferior because they're different color. They have a different way of living on the reserves, maybe. I don't think so myself. I've lived on reserve. I've lived in the city. And I could say I live pretty well the same here as when I lived on the reserve. Have the same conveniences at home anyway. Of course, it may not be the same on all reserves. I wouldn't know, though. I've not been on many reserves. Just the one I come from.
In summer, the family lives in the settlement, on a reserve in northern Quebec. It will soon be time for the children to go to school. Older ones will be sent away to residential school. Some families will stay in the settlement all year. This family, in late August, will load up the canoes and head out to spend winter in the bush on the trap lines. The Indians have come through a hard past. Diseases to which they had developed no immunity once decimated the tribes. That's changed now. What lies ahead for the young? There's not much to do. We wait. We hang around. Pick some blueberries. do some fishing, hang around. What choices lie before them? The reserve represents some measure of security. Modern industrialized society represents opportunities which as yet are difficult to grasp for many. Not very long ago, it was confidently predicted that within half a century, there would be no more North American Indians.
An Indian now has more chances to survive than he had some times ago. Maybe not too in a way, but it's more convenient now than it was before. I think the only way that the Indian's ever going to survive really now is to educate himself.
I don't know. Just live normally, I guess. Be an artist, that's all. I cannot think too much anymore what I want to do in the future. I don't want to have the bottom falling out again. Not until I see it, then I will be sure.
My ambition in life. What would I like to do? Oh, I don't know. I'd like to go to university, teach, someday get married and raise a family.
Today, the Indian population of Canada is increasing at a rate faster than that of any other people in the Western world.